Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, everybody, I am back. Good to be back. I do want to switch gears, and I do want to talk a little bit more college hoops, and I do want to talk about something that happened off the court on Tuesday, and it was a story that really, frankly, I kind of glossed over on the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast on Wednesday. It didn't feel like a big story to me because there was no real new information that came out on Tuesday. That is the plight and the interest behind Will Wade, the head coach of LSU. And like I said, I didn't really talk about it on Wednesday's show because there is nothing very much new that came out on Tuesday. But so many of you have reached out to me privately. I have been asked about it in every radio interview that I've done. And so I figured I'd just circle back and talk about it a little bit here because on Tuesday, LSU did in fact get its notice of allegations from the NCAA. And a lot of you have asked me, Torres, is this finally the moment? Is Will Wade finally done at LSU? And what I would say is this. It's certainly not like a great thing for Will Wade or LSU. But what I will say is we didn't learn anything on Tuesday. And what I would also say is if this thing goes the way that I think that it will, I think there's a possibility that Will Wade is the head coach at LSU for a very long time. And so if you have been waiting, and I know some of you have been, you say you don't, but I can see in the social media mentions that you care. If you have been waiting for the moment in time where the book finally gets thrown at Will Wade, where finally justice is served and Will Wade is out as LSU head coach, you might be waiting a long time. Possible that it happens sometime soon. But I would say based on what I know right now, I don't expect it to happen anytime soon. So here's a little bit of backstory. Let me contextualize what happened on Tuesday, okay? So LSU's obviously been caught up in this FBI probe for forever now. 2017 is when it started. LSU gets involved in we find out in 2018 that there's a wiretap with Will Wade on it. And since then, there really hasn't been anything new. Obviously, the documentary came out in early 2020, March of 2020. And in that, we actually hear the audio of Will Wade on the wiretap. In terms of what happened on Tuesday, so that's what's just happened in the bigger picture. Nothing really new has happened since. And on Tuesday, what happened, this is what you need to know, okay? So as part of the process of being investigated by the NCAA eventually gives you a piece of paper. It's called a notice of allegations. And it is what the NCAA is accusing you of doing, right? So the NCAA does this big, long investigation. They send you a notice of allegations. This is what you did. You have time to appeal. Then they eventually come to a verdict. So what happened on Tuesday with LSU is pretty straightforward. All that happened was they got a document saying, this is what we think you did. The problem was that there were several media outlets, and I won't name names, Sports Illustrated, that wanted to make Tuesday something when we really didn't find out anything, okay? So, yes, LSU got the notice of allegations, but it is not a public document yet. It will eventually become available by Freedom of Information Acts or whatever. But they got a notice of allegations, but we don't know what's on it. We do not know what LSU is actually accused of at this exact moment as I record here on Wednesday afternoon. We do not know what LSU is accused of. And so, essentially, as Sports Illustrated basically was the big one. They put out this, I'm not saying that there shouldn't have been a news report written, but it probably should have been a paragraph. LSU gets its notice of allegations. When we have any details on what's on that piece of paper, we'll follow up and we'll get you some details. Instead, Sports Illustrated, LSU gets notice of allegations. It could be really, really, really bad. Well, one, we don't know because we don't know what was on that notice of allegations. And so because of it, essentially a lot of these news outlets, and it's not just Sports Illustrated, but a lot of these news outlets essentially just reprinted the same stories that they've had for 2, 3, 4 years. Well, this is what he said on the wiretap back in 2017, by the way. This is what he said on the wiretap. This was what was said in a documentary in 2020. We have no real new information other than that he got a notice of allegations. And so I cracked up because I read the report. I'm waiting for all the juicy details or waiting for everything to come out, and there was nothing there. It was just that they got the notice of allegations. They are obviously going to look it over, respond to the NCAA, all that good stuff. And so in terms of Will Wade's future, to sit here and say, and I saw some, oh, this must be the beginning of the end. It must finally be. Listen, what I'll say is this. A couple things. One, I don't think it's inconceivable that Will Wade eventually ends up out as the LSU head coach, and it's for a few reasons. One, there's obviously going to be some kind of rules violation. We'll find out how bad it is. We'll find out if what he is heard on the wiretap, how the NCAA interprets it, what it means, all that good stuff. And there are a few things working against Will Wade. One, when he was originally suspended back in 2018, 2019, whenever. It was a long time ago either way. I think it was 2019. When he got suspended, he did amend his contract where if he is even accused of any level 1 or level 2 NCAA rules violations, he can be fired with cause. I read that at the time of him basically saying, I know this investigation's at least going to take 2 or 3 years, and so because of it, I'm just going to make sure I get paid throughout the whole process. Well, now that notice of allegations is here, and now it'll be curious to see what LSU decides to do, because they can, if he is accused of anything, let alone found guilty of it, then he can be fired without cause. It's also worth noting, by the way, the AD who hired him, the AD who stuck by him in 2019, Joe Oliva, is no longer at the school, and I do think that is worth noting as well when it comes to Will Wade's situation. Scott Woodward's the new AD. Scott Woodward's the big, important guy that hired Brian Kelly. Scott Woodward seems to have Will Wade's back, but he has no allegiance to Will Wade. So I certainly think there's a possibility that over the next couple weeks, next couple months maybe, that Will Wade could ultimately be let go. But what I would also say is what I said a minute ago. If you're planning on it, if you've been waiting for it, if you're hoping for it, if you're on your hands and knees, I hate LSU, I hate Will Wade, he's a cheater. I'll just tell you a few things. Be careful what you wish for, because I don't know that it's going to happen. First off, what I can tell you is I've followed all of these reports. LSU fans have Will Wade's back. I don't know if the administration feels the same way about Will Wade that the fans do, but I can tell you, I talk to fans on social media. I do media stuff in Baton Rouge. I talk to, media members across this country, and what I can tell you definitively, LSU fans love Will Wade. I think part of it is they just love the fight. It's us versus them, NCAA versus us. Let's go get them. Let's go beat them at their own game. But also, let's be honest. Will Wade, you can criticize him. I think he's actually a pretty good basketball coach. Everybody keeps saying, oh, think about all the guys that he's paying and all the this and all the that. Well, first of all, we'll find out if he's accused of anything. But it's also worth noting, as I've said many times, Will Wade's going to get to the NCAA tournament this year, and his best player is a guy who averaged 7 points per game at Cincinnati last year. So, like the idea that Will Wade is just like throwing money around like it's beads at Mardi Gras, like his best player is a guy who averaged 7 points per game at Cincinnati. Oh, by the way, the leading point guard, Xavier Pinson, who's been awesome, basically got benched by Missouri last year. So don't tell me so that's part of it. And then two, the other reason LSU fans are standing by him, besides the us versus them, on top of that, he's actually a pretty good coach. People criticize him. Last 4 years, Sweet 16 in 2019. I know he didn't coach because he was suspended. 2020, they were 21-10 and were going to make the NCAA tournament before it was canceled. Last year, they make the NCAA tournament. This year, they're going to make the NCAA tournament. So basically 4 straight years for LSU basketball that they are going to be either in the tournament or obviously would have been in the tournament had there been an NCAA tournament in 2020. And so I bring it up because the last time that LSU has made 4 straight NCAA tournaments before this year, and they're going to make it this year. It was 1990 to 93 when Shaq was on campus, okay? It was a long time ago. So LSU fans obviously have an affinity for this guy because he wins games. And all these other fan bases can say this, that, the other thing. All you guys want to do is win too. By the way, I don't really care. I'm a fan too. I just want my team to win. But why I bring it up is because I was doing radio the other day and a prominent radio person said, I'm a Georgia fan. I just want Rick Pitino. I just want to win. I'm tired of having my brains beat in by John Calipari, by Rick Barnes, by Bruce Pearl, by whoever. Same with Auburn. You could criticize what's going on at LSU, but be clear. I obviously really, really like Bruce Pearl. Love him. But we know about his background. We knew that he was coming off a show cause when he was hired at Auburn. And so when it comes to LSU, those fans are going to fight for Will Wade. And what I would also say is, I think this is kind of an interesting element of this as well. He did some stuff 4 or 5 years ago, and maybe he has to be punished for it. But at the same time, what I would also say is that stuff that he did that was so bad, that's not breaking the rules anymore. And so I had somebody suggest this to me, and I think it's pretty interesting. Is it at all possible that NIL could save Will Wade? Because, yeah, he could get suspended, miss some time, get suspended some games. But if the NCAA doesn't throw the hammer at him, if the NCAA doesn't say, you got to sit out a year, or you got to sit out this, or you get a show cause, or you that, I mean, can LSU just say, yeah, we kind of wish he hadn't done what he did? But it's not against the rules anymore. And so these are all things to just consider. I don't know what they're going to decide, but what I do know is it'll be interesting to follow these next steps. And it's funny, right? Because over the last couple days, I've seen all sorts of reports on the internet and this and that, and it's possible that he won't coach in the SEC tournament. Listen, anything's possible. I don't know. By the time you listen to this, maybe we find out that Will Wade is not, in fact, coaching in the SEC tournament. But it just feels weird to me that they would stick by the guy for 5 years. The notice of allegations comes. They don't even have to respond to it until after the NCAA tournament. And now they're going to get rid of him now. Now they're going to put him on the sideline now. Now they're not going to let him coach in the SEC tournament. That doesn't really make sense to me. So my thought on this is pretty straightforward. Obviously, the LSU is going to let the process play out. After the season, they will both get some kind of resolution. But then more importantly, I also believe that they're not only going to get a resolution, but that on top of that, they're going to make a decision on Will Wade. But I don't believe that Tuesday really changed anything. Until we know what is in that NOA, that notice of allegations, Will Wade's going to be your head basketball coach at LSU, and a lot of you guys are just going to have to deal with it. If you guys and girls enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast YouTube channel. Also, make sure you download full episodes of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, available Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Thank you, people.